Okay, so this is the last activity for today's tutorial. Right now, our activity, we're going to be creating a light bulb. So if you think about a light bulb, it's essentially three components. We have the bulb itself, right, the part that glows the glass or plastic, whatever it is. We have the housing in the middle, and then we have the metal endpoint that you screw into the socket to power the whole thing. So we'll take it one step at a time. In this case, we'll start with the plastic housing, right? So we've already remembered how to create bodies using the create body tool. So we create a cylinder, and our light bulb is facing upwards, so it's like the bottom plane. We'll create a cylinder, and we'll make this 30 millimeters in diameter. We'll left click. Again, it'll tell us how high we want it. We'll tell it we want it to be 40 millimeters high. Okay, we'll hit OK. Now we have a cylinder. So now what we want is to have a bulb essentially in the middle. And in the case of a bulb, we need to basically create a sphere, and we can do that using the sphere tool here. Alright, so all these you have a few different types. We're going to select sphere. Now again, it's going to tell us to position it where we want it to be, but I don't want it to be here. This is too low. Why? Because it's going to give me my center sphere, right? And in this case, I want my sphere to be 61 millimeters. Let's just hit join. And you can see that's way too small for my light bulb, right? I don't want that, that's just too small. How do I fix this? Well, if you go back to the sphere tool, right, you can see it's telling me where I want my sphere, my center point. Really, I want it to be up here somewhere, right? But I can't really do that because I don't have a point to anchor to. So again, similar to the tutorials we've done before, we're going to create a sketch. I'm going to angle this up a little bit. And what I can do is I can press project again to get my middle point here. Hit OK. And now if I select the line tool, I can snap it into the middle. I'll go up. I'm going to make this 20 millimeters up in the air. Right? And in this case, I'll make it a construction line since I don't want it to actually be a sketch that I'm using. So finish sketch. You can see my line is up here now. Now if I go back to create sphere, now I can select the point. Yeah, so I can select the point now, and I can basically make this the dimension I want, which is 61. And I'm going to select join, hit OK. And I don't need this sketch anymore, so I'm just going to hide this. And you can see I've got my light bulb with an appropriately sized middle shell. So next, I want my light bulb to actually conform to the shape and look more like a light bulb. I'm going to go to fillet, select this edge here, middle, and I'm going to make this have a fillet of 45 millimeters. And you can see how it looks a lot better, right? And now I need another fillet on the bottom to make it rounded. Again, I can just hit plus. Right, don't worry, it's going to go back to the initial stage, but it's just so that you can select the edges. I'm going to select the bottom one. I'm going to give this a fillet of 4 millimeters. So you can see now it's reverted it back. I'm going to hit OK. And this looks more like a light bulb shape, right? So you should have this shape. Now, we've got the first two parts of our light bulb done. Now we need to make the bottom threaded portion. Now, if you're already familiar with how we do threads, what do? Yeah, so what we can do to save time is we can just press E, select this face, and we can extrude this. And this will be perfectly dimensioned to how we want it.
It's time for you to put your thinking cap on.
Yep, can do that. So we'll do new sketch, circle, and we said we needed it to be 22, right? So you can see here our circle. It's more or less in line, right? So why is it? Actually, wait, no, that's correct. So we have our circle in here, 22, just to make sure, because sometimes our face may not, if we go back here, our face may or may not. I think in this case, it should be create driven. Yeah, so in this case, it was 22, so that's good. And we can always check using this way. But as a general rule of thumb with threads, you might want to just create an additional circle just in case. Let's just say, for example, I've got this fillet of 4, but I need this width in this example to actually be, let's just say 24, right? In this case, we can't use the face. We need to create a new circle, right? And if this is the case, what we can do is we can select both faces, extrude, and if we go up, right, you can see now that it's actually going into the fillet. We can select two sides, select the other arrow, and now if we select this to join, I'm not going to care about the distance for now, you can see that our fillet is still connected to the cylinder, but it is appropriately dimensioned to, in this case, 24, was it? Yeah, 24. So it's just a helpful tool that if you're making threads, make sure that the dimension is correct. And it might be better to make a new sketch and a new cylinder, because especially if you need to change your light bulb, say you need to increase the housing size, or you need to change the fillet with your user parameters, then if everything is constrained, if everything is related to one another, you're going to find that your cylinder changes as well. In this case, let's undo all this, remove the sketch, and we're going to create this cylinder, right? And you're going to see if I go back to my initial cylinder and I'm going to change this diameter, so let's just say 20 and make it smaller. You can see now that my thread is considerably smaller, right? If I dimension it, you can see now it's 12. And again, it's going to fall right off, right? But if I undo all this, I create a sketch, I make this, in this case 22 is correct, finish sketch, I'm going to extrude this out, again I'm going to join, right, same as before, let's hide the sketch, and now if I go back and, change my cylinder to 20, you can see this is still correct. I mean, the fillet is going to be adjusted wrongly, but you can see my cylinder does not change. So it's helpful to always create separate parameters for parts that you know are going to change. In this case, it's the socket diameter. But anyway, for now, we'll leave it as 22. We will extrude this out to a distance of 15 millimeters. Join. So over here, join is fine. We'll hide the sketch in this case, over here. And now what we want to do is to create a chamfered edge on this bottom side. So we're going to select the edge, we're going to select chamfer, right? And we're going to select the edge on the bottom. And we're going to give this a fillet of 2 millimeters, right? Well, let's just say I want this to be a little bit wider on the bottom, right? I don't want this circle to be just that little bit wider. Essentially, I want my chamfer to be steeper, right? So what can I do? I can, instead of going equal distance, which basically just means that I'm going in, 2 millimeters on both sides, I can select distance and angle. See? So now what this does is it gives me an angle of 45 by default, but if I change this to, let's just say 70 degrees, you can see it's going to change my chamfer angle. Now in this case, I'm happy with my 45, but if you need to ever change the chamfer angle, you can either use it with the distance. If I change this to 1, you can see that my thing has gone back and now it's a lot steeper. Or you can go to 2 distance. In this case, I'm going to select, say, 2. This is going to give me a 45 degree angle. But now I want this to be a lot higher. And let's just say I go to 5, sorry. You can see it increases accordingly. If I go to 10, you can see it goes much higher. So there's 3 ways you can really put the chamfer. But by default, you usually go to equal distance. And I'm happy with this, so I'll leave it as okay. And now I have my cylinder chamfer, that's fine. I've got it all down. So now I want to create a thread. How would I do that? So I can go to thread, I'll press S to bring it up, hit thread. And which face do I select? The cylinder, right? So I'll select this. And now again, it's got, is this actually a thread right now? So I have to hit model, and now it will model my thread, right? But in this case, I don't want my thread to go so high. So how do I tell it, hey, I only want it to go like up to here maybe, along this line. Well, simple, I just uncheck full length. And now I can tell it, hey, I want an offset, in this case, of 3 millimeters, right? Now it's on the bottom for now because I've selected this offset. In this case, I want my length 3. I'm going to select the NC metric M profile first. N22 by 3, that's correct. And I'm going to adjust this down. Yeah, so I can adjust it this way, you see. So in this case, my length is kind of what determines it essentially, you see. So here I can always play around with the arrows and That should be fine. I mean, I'll leave it like this for now. It's okay, right? So I've got my thread. We'll hit OK. And lastly, we just need to add on the bottom contact. This is the thing that sort of pushes on the bottom and shows the discontact. So in this case, we're just going to, again, we don't need this to be super fancy. We'll just select the face. We'll extrude it down by about 2 millimeters. Was it 2? Yeah, 2 millimeters. Hit OK. And we will just chamfer this down again. So I can select this. Oops. We'll drag this to about 2. Okay. So you can see actually it just increased it. So what I'll do is I'll just increase this to 4. Doesn't really matter. Now I've got my end contact. And now we have our light bulb essentially. Well, this looks kind of dull, right? So we can go to appearances, and technically if this was the real world, what we do is we go to plastic. We'll just do ABS white. Just put the whole body for now. Actually, you know what we'll make this simpler. We'll go to, where is it? Sorry, I'm looking for metal. Go to aluminum. Go here, aluminum polish is fine, doesn't matter. We'll go back to our plastic. We can select the faces this time. We'll just select these 3. Select that. Now we've got a aluminium bottom screw with a plastic shell. And then of course with our bulb, it will just be glass, right? So where's glass? Now I'm just going to type here glass. Oops. Okay, let's just do glass frosted. Doesn't matter, right? Okay, so this is more like a light bulb, of course, without the inner workings. But now you don't have. What I'm going to show you is that the appearance can change based on what you select, right? So if I go to the render workspace, and don't worry about what it does now, you can see that my bulb is just a glass. Essentially, it's not really a light, right? So how do I sort of turn it on in this case? So I'll go back to my design. I'll go back, and I'll just in this case select LED, right? And now I can see I've got LED options. In this case, I'm just going to select the first one. Doesn't really matter. Oops. I need to again select the face. I want this bulb here. Click and drag. And you can't see it now because it's again in the render. In the workspace here, you've got your visual environment set to photo booth. If I select dark sky, you can see that. In this case, I'm going to switch it back to photo booth. And now if I go into the render, I've got a light bulb that emits light. And if I were to render it, you can see that it actually emits the light in your workspace. See? Of course, I'm not going to actually render this. It's just to show you that you can create light. And this can be useful if you want to position light in future tutorials to create a nice shadow effect. Let's just say. For example, I will go to one object that I made, and there is a sphere in the middle that is essentially an LED bulb. And so if I'm going to render it, you can see that it'll create a nice little shadow effect. It renders. You see how it lights up like this? But this is just something you can do. You can actually add lights as an appearance to Fusion 360 bodies. So I'm going to close this. I don't need this. I'll go back to design workspace. And now I have my light bulb. So I have my, okay, again, it's a body, right? It's a joined body. Yeah. So this is one whole solid 3D model with internal geometry, so to speak. So if I hit offset, I'm basically telling Fusion I only want this face to go into itself. But I want to leave everything else all the same, right? And this can sometimes break it, but in this case it doesn't. I'm going to tell it -1, so it goes in by 1 millimeter. Hit OK. And now my face, and only my face, but the rest of the geometry stays the same. Okay. So in this case, my thread stays the same as well, right? If, just an example, so if say I want my chamfer to remain the same, but I want this thread to go back in, I just have to select offset face, select my thread, and I can basically tell it to go in like that. See? So all the rest stays the same. My geometry essentially stays the same, but I'm telling it specifically, push this face in, keep everything else the same. Yeah, so offset is useful in that sense.
Know your f***ing place, trash.